The Secret Garden, adapted for English language learners at Level A2 by Story Steps. Chapter 4, Dickon. Winter was ending. Mary felt it in the air before she saw it anywhere. A slight softening in the temperature, a less sharp edge to the cold. The light was changing in quality, and the days were getting longer. She visited the secret garden every day without fail. She had found an old stick in the potting shed to loosen the hard soil around the rose bushes. She had no tools and no knowledge, but she worked as carefully as she was able. She pulled up weeds and recognized them. They grew in the middle of paths and choked the flower beds. She was learning by doing it every day. It was the only way she had ever learned anything. One morning, she asked Martha a question she had been thinking about. "Martha, imagine someone wanted to make a garden grow. They wanted to plant seeds. Where do they learn to do it properly? Where do they get the right tools?" Martha put down what she was doing and thought for a moment. "Well, miss, there is a gardening shop in the village. They sell seeds and small tools. I am able to order things for you, and they will arrive in a day or two. My brother Dickon knows more about growing things than anyone I've ever met. He has his own little plot on the moors. He grows all sorts. I can write to him and ask him to come and show you." Mary had been thinking about Dickon ever since Martha first spoke about him. She said in a voice she tried to make sound casual, "Yes, write to him, ask him to come, tell him to bring some seeds. I will pay for them from my money." Martha smiled her broad smile and nodded. "I will write tonight, miss. He will come as soon as he can." 3 days passed. Mary visited the garden every day, loosening the soil and pulling weeds. She was getting better at it. Her hands became stronger and less soft, and she was able to work for an hour without her arms getting tired. On the 4th day, she was in the secret garden working near the old apple tree. She heard something outside the wall. Someone was playing a wooden flute. The notes were simple and clear, a repeating tune that wandered and came back to itself like a brook, finding its way between stones. The door opened. A boy came in and stopped just inside the doorway. He was about 12 years old, the same age as Mary, but he looked very different from any boy she had ever seen. He was sturdy and brown-faced from spending all his time outdoors. He had the reddest hair she had ever seen, stuck up in several directions at once. His clothes were old and patched, but clean. He looked at Mary with large, honest blue eyes that were not shy at all. On his right shoulder sat a small brown squirrel. A large black crow was walking on the ground just behind his boots. "Hello," he said. "You must be Miss Mary. I am Dickon. Martha wrote me about you and said you wanted to learn about growing things." Mary stared at the squirrel, at the crow, and at Dickon. "Are these animals tame?" she asked. "This is Nut," said Dickon. He lifted his hand, and the squirrel ran from his shoulder to his wrist. It sat and looked at Mary with bright, interested eyes. "He is not exactly tame. He is wild, really. He trusts me. I found him very young, too young to manage on his own. I helped him, and now he comes and goes as he likes, but he mostly stays near me." He nodded at the crow. "And that is Soot, who followed me home one day. He never left. Crows are very intelligent, much more than most people think." "How do you get them to trust you?" Mary asked. Dickon considered this question seriously. It was a good question worth thinking about carefully. I suppose I go slowly. I do not rush at them or make sudden movements. I talk to them quietly, and they learn the sound of my voice. I do not try to make them do anything against their wishes. Animals can tell if you are forcing them. They need to choose for themselves. Mary thought about this. It was interesting and new to her. She had never thought about animals as creatures making choices. "How did you get through the door?" she asked. "It was locked." "It was not locked when I tried it. You probably left it open by accident." Mary's face became warm with embarrassment. She had been in a hurry that morning and had not checked the lock properly. "This is Mrs. Craven's old garden," said Dickon. He looked around with wide, surprised eyes, his gaze moving from the walls to the trees and the tangled beds. "I always wondered about it. People in the village talk about it and say she loved it more than anywhere." "Is it all dead?" Mary asked him carefully. She watched his face. She felt he would know the answer. Dickon did not answer immediately. He walked to the nearest rose bush and crouched beside it. He took a penknife from his pocket and made a small cut in one of the stems near the base. He looked at the cut and looked at Mary. "Alive," he said. "See this green? And this—" He moved to another bush and pressed a stem between two fingers. "This one too. Most of them are alive, I think. They were neglected, but roses are tough. They do not give up easily." He stood up and began to move through the garden quickly but carefully. He looked at the plants as he moved and pointed things out to Mary. "Crocus, there already up, yellow from the look of the bud. Snowdrops here, almost open. And this—" he pointed to a patch of soil near the wall. "Daffodil bulbs, most likely. They are pushing up. In a few weeks this whole corner will become yellow." Mary walked beside him and looked where he pointed. She had been working in this garden every day for weeks, and Dickon was seeing things she had completely missed. He had a way of noticing small things. A shoot no bigger than a finger, a bud not yet unfolded. It made her feel the garden was far more alive than she had thought. "I brought seeds," said Dickon. He opened his jacket to show several small paper packets tucked inside. "Poppies, sweet peas, larkspur and nasturtiums. They are easy, and they make a beautiful colour. If we plant these now in the beds you have already cleared, they will come up before you know it. If we work on the rose bushes and cut back the dead wood, they will bloom in early summer." "Are you able to help me?" Mary asked him. It was not easy for her to ask for help. She was not used to it. Dickon looked at her steadily with his honest blue eyes and smiled. "I am not anywhere else," he said simply. They worked together for the rest of the morning. Dickon showed Mary how to use the small trowel he had brought, how to hold it, how to make the right depth of hole for different seeds, how to firm the soil down without compacting it too much. He explained why different plants needed different things, and what the soil needed to grow well after 10 years of neglect. Mary paid close attention. She had never been particularly good at anything before, but she found she was good at this. Good at listening, good at working carefully, good at noticing details. Dickon talked while he worked, as naturally as breathing, about the moors and their seasons, about animals he had seen, about the way plants communicated with each other underground through their roots. Mary talked too, more than she normally did with anyone. She talked about India, the ship bringing her to England, arriving at the manor. She talked about finding it strange and dark. "You lived a very different life," said Dickon, without judging her. "I suppose I have," said Mary. "It did not feel unusual at the time. It just felt like how things were." At the end of the morning, Dickon collected his tools and his packets of leftover seeds. Soot landed on his shoulder. Nut appeared from somewhere in the ivy, ran down his arm and sat in his jacket pocket. "Miss Mary," said Dickon at the door, "this garden is your secret. I will keep it. If you want it private, no one will hear a word from me." "Thank you," said Mary. She meant it very deeply. He left, and she stood for a long moment in the garden alone. The light was changing toward afternoon. It came gold through the bare branches of the apple tree. The beds they had worked on looked tidier. The seeds they had planted were already, in her mind, starting to move under the soil. It was hers, her garden, her work, her secret. She had never owned anything truly her own before. The feeling was new and strong, strong enough to make her stand still and let it settle into her heart.